All right.
Great, we're live.
On to order the Tuesday, April 6th Utility Commission meeting. We will start with a roll call, and I'll just call the names that I see on. So Sam Attal.
Here.
Ronald. Here. Chris.
Present.
And Clark. Who's
Clark,
on
you're
mute,
on
but
mute. We can hear you.
I see you waving your hand, so. All right, very good.
Present.
Welcome, everyone. We'll move on to public comments. Thank you, Clark. Is there anyone who has signed up for public comments?
At this time, there is no one else in the meeting other than the commission.
Perfect. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. The first item is discussion and possible action on the minutes from the March 3rd, 2021 Utility Commission meeting. Ashley circulated those prior to the meeting. They were fairly short. I had a chance to read them, so I had no problems, but I want to make sure everyone else had an opportunity to look them over. All right.
Yes, I read them, and I would move to accept the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion and Chris has seconded. All in favor of adopting the minutes for the March 3rd Utility Commission meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it.
I'm gonna run get a power cord.
Moving
I'll be
on.
right back.
All right. Well, now that Chris is coming back, we're moving on to the regular agenda. The first item is an update and discussion on a report of the financial impact of the utility bill relief program due to the February 2021 winter weather event. And as you all recall from looking over the minutes from the March 3rd meeting, we had made a decision to revise the utility bills for that period to only include the tier 1 pricing. So this will give us some indication of the impact of that relief.
Sharon, do you want to go ahead and take this?
Sure, I got it. So the wholesale cost for the water for the month of February was $33,934.95. And putting everybody in those first two tiers with the water demand charge, that based on the 5/8 individual residential meter, the cost that we charged the customers was $37,793 with no cents. So that put approximately $4,398.05 into the water fund.
Very good. Is there any way to determine what we would have collected had we not provided that type of relief? I guess we just want to, ultimately, I do think that it was helpful to the residents. I think the point of our structure was to make sure that one, we're providing some relief, but two, that we're covering our costs, right? And I think at $4,000 does not show that we were opportunistic in taking advantage of the situation. I think we just wanted to make sure that no one had any surprises, but ultimately that we still covered our costs, and it sounds like we did so. So thank you for those numbers and appreciate everyone's work in getting that relief passed on to the residents.
And if that's something, if you want to see how much we would have charged the residents, I can most definitely get that back to you guys.
I think that would I think that would just be helpful in terms of understanding what the impact of that storm actually had on the water usage itself. So that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yep, I can do that. Thank you.
And for future use with problems down the road.
And to add a little bit to that, when after the power went out, we noticed that water usage went down because people weren't, taking showers. They weren't using their washing machines. So there wasn't as much water consumption as we had originally thought.
Right. That makes sense. I still think folks will be appreciative. Hopefully they're appreciative. You never know. Great. Any other comments on this item? All right. Well, moving on to regular agenda item number 4, which is discussion and possible action to evaluate and draft a policy that requires new residential water meters installed at the request of the property owner be digital meters paid for by the property owner. I'm guessing, is this something that came down from City Council for us to discuss?
It is. They wanted, I think we realized we missed some opportunities with putting in, electronic meters in some of the redevelopment that's been occurring over the past couple of years. And so council wanted to ask you all to consider a policy where if they wanted to, if they needed to upgrade their meter, they would install an electronic meter.
Now that, we went through this process of the trial with the electronic meters through AWR, and it was with the Badger meters. There has been some discussion as to whether or not expanding the meters would also expand our reliance on AWR as the partner there. I think there may be some sensitivity to that. Can you provide any guidance around what we're doing with regard to the AWR relationship and what impact launching this type of program as far as replacing meters, even at the cost, to the homeowner, would have on that relationship?
Sure. Great question. So with regard to AWR, you all know they did not respond during the emergency and put us on notice Monday after the storm had already hit. None of the city employees live in Rollingwood, and so getting there was quite difficult. And they put us, we could have gone in Sunday if we had known, and we could have been better prepared.
Mhm.
So we are moving away from our relationship with them. We are implementing financial billing and financial software. So that's what Sharon's going to be doing. We hope to go live with our new utility billing software July 1. And then we have drafted an RFP for another emergency service provider and plan to publish that tomorrow. But so with regard to these meters, we can contract directly with Badger Meter if you're all satisfied with the product. And then what we're doing now is, because we don't have the electronic meter software, we're still hand reading. We're hand reading it. So we can do this independent of AWR.
The ultimate hope, though, is if we get a sufficient volume of electronic meters installed, that we will use software to automate that meter reading process, right?
Yes.
And that would include the bursts, et cetera.
Yeah, so we could get some quotes from Badger to see, how we might be able to strategize and make that, like, at what point maybe we bring on the software day one, if everybody is enjoying the meters and feels that they're helpful, and this is something that the Utility Commission wants to do, maybe it makes sense to go ahead and get that implemented right away. But that's something we could talk to our Badger representative about.
So so a policy, okay, I just want to go back and review what the request was, which was for us to draft a policy around how we are communicating to residents that you may purchase these meters at your expense. I guess I'd be curious as to understanding the cost of the meter. Does it depend on the size and what that communication might look like? Since we obviously will have the benefit of the app, but we won't be able to explain to them the benefits of automatic reading, et cetera, until we have that done. But this is all part of the process. So what are we looking at as far as the amounts that we'd be communicating to residents that this would cost?
Sure. So we were quoted for a 5/8 inch meter, it's $490. And for a 1-inch meter, it's $564.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a $75 meter installation fee that would be charged if the work wasn't done by Public Works. We're going to try to do those meter installs ourselves. I think today a new water meter is $200 or $250, something like that.
Okay. And is there the ability to have this, again, depending on the resident, this amount stretched out over their water bill as opposed to a one-time? It would basically be financing it in that sense. I'm just curious as far as options that residents may have. If you say it's a one-time $600 fee, that might hurt some folks more than others who might be willing to pay over time, over 12 months, et cetera. I'm just curious as to what our capabilities are there.
I would need to find out how many water meters we're replacing. I don't know how often that's happening. My guess is yes, we could offer that. And not everybody is going to,
Right.
take advantage of that. But that's my guess. I would need to check into that.
And then my final question, and I'll happily open it up to the rest of the folks on the commission, is when they say drafting a policy, other than saying we'll communicate that you now have the ability to buy a meter and this is what it costs, what are we actually looking at, requirements wise from, language? What do we need to be saying in this quote unquote policy?
I think it to be, to your point, Jonathan, it needs to be educational as to why these are beneficial to the city, why they're beneficial to the customers.
I imagine Badger has some information that they would probably provide. It'd probably be marketing information, but they would have some information that we could include as far as selling it on accuracy, the benefits of the app with regard to tracking water usage, the alert capabilities, et cetera, that we'd want to have included in that notification.
Great idea. We will reach out to them for more information.
Okay.
Do we know if the city council was intending this for like just new builds or for any time there's a water meter that needs to be replaced? Because for me personally, I think if it's for a new development home, I think the cost is kind of very small compared to the bigger picture, and the benefits far outweigh that couple $100 difference between the standard meter. But I see what Jonathan's saying, that if it's someone that has a broken meter for any reason, having to pay the extra money, it would be nice if we could stretch that over a couple billing cycles for them.
They didn't discuss new build versus existing, but it's a good thought.
Frankly, it should be required with new builds.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming we're all moving to digital, we should say this is the meter you get with your new build. I actually certainly be in favor of that, and you make a good point that small fraction they're spending it. And would this be optional? Right. Obviously, it's optional, right? You said we're basically saying if you'd like to upgrade to an electronic meter, this is your option, or you don't have to, right? This is not a we're passing this on to upgrade everyone, and we're doing it at your expense.
I think it was the latter.
May I ask a question? How much are we paying right now to have the meters read monthly?
We have our employees who read the meters every month, and then they it takes them 2 to 3 days to get all the meters read, and then they upload it onto phones, and then the phones deliver the meter reads to the billing system.
So we don't know what it would save us. I mean, could we eliminate one employee if we didn't have to read the meters, or what is the savings there?
The savings is, I would say, they're going to be more accurate. We definitely wouldn't let any employee go. We're already, I would say, understaffed in the public works department. But I don't have an understanding. I mean, I think that information from Badger would be, we'd definitely be more efficient. We'd have fewer water leaks. It would take less staff time to address water adjustments.
It's Bill here. Sorry, I joined late. To address that with Sam, I think you can just do a simple calculation based on that information. If you use 3 days, 600 meters, roughly 202 staff doing it, 100 meters a day, 8 hours, $50 an hour, it's marginal.
I think the main driver for this wasn't necessarily a cost savings to the city as much as it was one to provide homeowners with better certainty around their water bill, and also to minimize the impact of potential leaks both to the resident and to the city by having a more early warning system, so to speak, in place. But again, so you don't think this wasn't positioned as optional. This is, we're going ahead to do this. We just want to inform everyone what it's going to look like and what it's going to cost.
I believe that was the council intent. Ashley, would you agree?
That's what I understood too. And then I think they would probably look to the commission to decide if there were going to be other options involved for voluntary, meter upgrades. I think if the point is to eventually hopefully be on electronic meters for the entire city, that could be something that's included in the policy as well. But I believe the intent was just to require for meters, swap outs.
May I ask, under the current policy, if your meter is broken and it's just currently replaced with another meter, who foots the bill? And is that just going to 250 for the regular meter?
We are charging only if it's a brand new build. Are we charging for a new water meter?
So if someone has a broken water meter now in an existing home, I don't think it would be reasonable to say you're going to pay $600. I think you should be expecting them to pay the difference between the $600 and the $250, the marginal difference.
May I build on what Phil said in terms of, I think optimally what we're all want to go to is every home being on either one or the other. Let's just pick a system and go with it. And the mess is the middle. And if you think of a meter as like a lift station that we all have to pay for, that maybe at some point, like I got a digital meter, but I didn't have to pay anything. And if we're paying for them, I should have to pay too. And I'm happy to do it. But if this is part of an overall improvement of the system, maybe we treat it as that and it's included in part of the costs. And then we don't have to deal with the, oh, you have to pay 200, 500 or whatever for the meter. It's kind of the thing with my house with I have regular light bulbs and LEDs, and I've been replacing the regulars when they burn out with LEDs, but I haven't like gone through my house and pulled out all the regulars and put up LEDs.
I'm guessing this is also supposed to coincide with the, well, with that RFP process is about to begin or is ongoing. And we're trying to put this policy in place concurrent with that. I don't know why we would get ahead of ourselves with replacing meters until we have a better understanding of who's going to be servicing and doing the billing for us.
Absolutely.
Are there a variety of companies providing these meters? I mean, there are other sources. And how did we come to look at this particular company?
I believe there are other sources, but Badger is the type of meter that we use for our other meters. And it was, they're a large player in the water meter industry.
Does the city of Austin use the electronic water meters?
I think we do. I can't be certain.
I was looking at their website and they had mention of trying to switch over with a pilot program to switch over a number of homes to the new digital water meters. And I think their intention, I'm just basing this on what I saw online, is to switch over to the digital water meters eventually.
I would bet they're outsourcing their meter reading right now. They outsource a lot of those things.
So John, I'm afraid I'm the one that kind of got us a little off track. What is the issue on the agenda in terms of what we're supposed to do? And
No, I was just about to get back to that, which is to
Yeah.
say, so Amber, is this something where we say, hey, we just need some sample language about what this might look like to give us some idea of what we're trying to accomplish with a policy? And then based on what that looks like, we can either add additional language that we think is necessary, or edit it as necessary. But I think it seems like it just seems very broad as far as, otherwise we would just say we all agree we should go forward. Just let city council approve a mass swap out at everyone's expense and see how that goes. I would just be curious if we could maybe review what you think they're looking for us to come up with. Maybe I'm just not understanding kind of the request.
Yeah, I think we could come up with a draft. And maybe we could even, it was Sarah's item, maybe ask her to give some bullet points or something for you all to think about and consider. But yeah, I think we could have that for you at the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just from what I'm just listening to other folks, it sounds like we would probably be all in favor of new builds being required to have digital meters, because that just makes sense if we're all moving in that direction, as opposed to having them install an old meter just to tell them you're going to replace that. So that seems like something you would address in this policy. And then similarly, maybe it's either a requirement or there's a time frame around which older meters, either upon breaking, there will be a policy around what the cost would be to replace it to digital, or if it's voluntary, what the cost would be to replace it to the homeowner, how those might differ relative to how a current resident is impacted by a broken meter. Those are just things that I think would be incorporated there.
I think before we make any kind of recommendation, we need to talk to some municipality or entity or water district that's using this system and want to know something about its reliability, its accuracy, replacement cost because it's electrical and something goes wrong with the electrical. I think we need to be sure that this is the right thing to do, and based on other municipalities' experiences, and also that we can sell it in some form or fashion to the community as being a better thing. Because right now, I don't hear we save a lot of money by putting these in.
So I came from the city of Round Rock, and I can tell you that Round Rock uses them. They don't use this particular brand. They use a different brand. And it was really cost effective for the consumer to see how much their irrigation was using. They caught pool leaks. It's really, there's some benefits on the residential side.
And Water District 10 apparently uses the same Badger meter. At least they use the Ion Water website, which I think is the product of the Badger company. So that's our adjacent service utility. And the question I had was what is our longer term plan for replacing all the meters? We're in the trial period with a dozen or so meters now. Who's going to make the decision to go forward and systematically replace them or not, or as they are end of life on the old type? Do we have a plan in place yet, or is the city council waiting for us to make a plan?
We don't have a plan in place, but yeah, if the utility commission would like to make a plan to do that, there are financing options that are interest-free, and it allows you to pay out over 3 years. So I think in total it would cost the city about $100,000 a year. And there might be some cost savings if Public Works did the replacement of the meters. We could do that, maybe save some money.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, my general feeling is whatever we do ought to have some understanding of what the longer term plan is, so that as we do a transition, we're not suddenly changing the policy and giving everyone else a free one or whatever, charging everyone. I don't know what our plan is, but it seems like it should be part of that.
With respect to Sam's comments around the meters themselves, I think these meters were chosen by AWR. I know that I think I understand from that conversation that this is not a small company, Badger, that they're fairly widespread as far as usage. I would just be curious as who we decide to replace AWR with, if they have a particular opinion on this or not. Does it seem that we're premature in moving forward with this particular meter if we're going to have a new service provider?
I agree, John, very much. Just knee jerk, I would say that if we could get some sort of plan where we either go one way or another, we go back to analog or we go to electronic and digital, and that just incorporated into the rate, much like the maintenance of the system, because this seems like a maintenance of the system issue rather than a household issue.
And I think that can be I would think that'd be optional. There might be some people who just I get it. They might just want to pay for it and be done, right? I don't know what that impact will have. I like the idea of providing some options for folks so they can see that we're thinking about the way this might impact, each individual. But I guess I just don't know if it matters who our provider is, whether it's AWR or someone else. It might be agnostic. These meters are agnostic to that. And so as long as we feel confident, again, the meter seems to be working. It definitely showed lots of usage when I was running faucets during the storm. It seemed to work. So I don't seem to have a problem with it. I don't think we have enough data points for our own case study on reliability, but I think the brand itself should. So I guess my question would be, do we think it matters who we ultimately partner with Amber before we decide that these are the meters we want to use. And if the answer is no, then we can go ahead with this policy. If the answer is yes, we should sit tight until we know who that is.
I mean, if the company, like the Crossroads, they service Westlake Hills, so they service Water District 10, who has the
And they know these meters.
meters.
Yep.
So my guess is it probably isn't. They're probably going to be experienced with whatever the most common meters are in the industry, no matter who we go with. But if you would like, to wait, I actually just received an email where AWR terminated a relationship. So this is going to move faster than what we had anticipated.
Thanks, guys.
That's right. Thanks, guys.
Effective when, Amber?
What's that?
Effective when?
Effective tomorrow in
Lovely.
30-day notice. Isn't that great?
Great, folks.
Yeah.
Well, all right then. Well, seeing as I think that does take slight priority to this, I guess what I would say is I'm okay delaying this until we have better clarity on who that service provider is, and just maybe have that discussion with them as well. But in the meantime, to the extent that we can start to circulate maybe what some of that language might look like, because it would, again, whether it's a Badger meter or not, the language around how we would look to potentially transition to an all digital meter for all residents will be the same, right? With regard to options for payment, what the cost might be, how we'd like to communicate, what those benefits are. So what I suggest is that we start working on language, but that we would ultimately hold off on any decision regarding sending it back to council to move forward with a transition until we know who that service provider is. But again, in the meantime, so I would table this. Well, I guess it's not really tabling it. We're saying, yes, we're going to move forward. Amber, if you could start to share some language with us that, again, it might be, some of the marketing stuff might be unique to Badger, but whoever we would potentially decide with would have very similar stuff. We can start putting together what that notification might look like, but ultimately we wouldn't make a decision until we knew who we were partnering with.
Sounds good.
So I don't think that requires the action, goal. Yes.
I agree. No.
Great. Well, thank you for that. Does anyone have any other items that they'd like to bring up that were not on the agenda? All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for your time this evening. I think we will adjourn, if that was all right with that.
Thank you.
Sounds like everyone is highly supportive. So thank you again, everyone. We appreciate it.
Do we need a motion?
A motion to adjourn?
That would work. Let's do that.
Proposed motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are official. We adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Paul.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice night.
Good night.
Take care.
Take care.